we normally host this Tuesday evening program designed to sort of encourage us to sort of take a deeper look at the issues confronting us, plus and minus, and also to kind of look behind, get behind the scenes. This week is a sub-theme, and I want to introduce that sub-theme with this. The extraordinary music of Hugh Masekela of South Africa. Because we want to dedicate this week's show to the youth, the young people. Both those who are being taken care of and cared for and aware that they are being cared for, but maybe even more importantly, those who, as the song suggests, maybe way, way, way down below and are not aware that anybody really cares. Because what they see is cities where people never say hello, real hello from the heart, and people who think that how they look is all it is. Thoughts that get to the heart of the identity of a people, the humanity of our people, the humaneness of a society, and the purpose of a society. And so, while we continue our conversation about governance and the economy, we would like to, this week, keep in mind, and ask you, the listeners, to keep in mind that at the heart of any economy is the people. And at the heart of the people, and the only real possibility of the future of a society, is its young people. It's not those who accumulate vast wealth or build huge houses or villas or hotels or fly in jet planes, private or otherwise, but it's the young people. And that those who abuse young people one way or another, physically, emotionally, sexually, those who take advantage of young people and use them as electioneering tools, give them money so that they will go out there and campaign for you, instead of going out there and campaigning for themselves and building a future for themselves. Those are the people who are really hurting Dominica and hurting our future. And our message to the young people is to look beyond those people. This week we are extremely fortunate to have a colleague, Dominican who has already distinguished himself in the work that he has done from a very young age as a professional in local government and community development and many other things. A man whose father I knew quite well, but he's the adult today. And I want to welcome Francis Joseph to the studios and to Governance and the Economy. Thank you so much, Francis, for making yourself available.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, and I feel privileged to be in your company. And yes, as a young person, my mentors were there because my father, like you, were all over Dominica. And the Farmers Union, Dominica Amalgamated Workers Union, WAWO, and the heated discussions that went on. The heated discussions that went on.
Get closer to the mic,
right,
so we can hear you clearly.
So, the topic that you have raised for discussion pertaining to our young people is very important and very relevant. Mm-hmm. And I've been in the Scout movement where we try to mold and develop young people. Mm-hmm. Then the Scout movement was visible. It's not visible anymore. The St. Alfonso Scout Troop, where I grew up from 6 years old up until a Scout leader, and we traveled and we went all over Dominica camping, showing them Dominica and the rivers and giving them tasks about nature to really embrace it. And we had so Roller Hector, who was not an intellectual, but his presence, everyone felt. He was a passionate guy, and may he rest in peace. So those things are important, and even within Child Fund, we had young people exposed to managing programs, taking responsibility in identifying their own needs and priorities within their communities. And we had the Roving Caregivers program where we got a grant overseas where we train young people to go into the homes and do caring and helping mothers in early childhood development concepts. And then we had the Ghana program with the youth division. In partnering with the youth division, we were in the Marigot Youth and the Granby and in the schools, working with young people with various systems and growing up as a young person. We need to have those programs continued, and we have to find them. It takes funding. So
you know, when I listen to you, Francis, you know, I take so much encouragement from you, because you know what you do? You keep reminding me. We used to do all these things. We know how to do all those things.
Definitely.
And the people like yourself and others, who I'm sure you could name, are still around.
Very much so.
So the question arises, Francis Joseph, why in the face of all these positives do our young people appear to be so abandoned to their own devices?
I think there's a mixture of issues pertaining to leadership in guiding them and the local leadership at community level. That's where we focus. We let the government get on with their business, but we knew what was happening. So we put it in general knowledge, in geography as to what was happening and the position of Dominica. Even growing up as a young person in the youth group, the whole issue of independence. There were sessions at the gardens we went to. You were there.
Yeah.
People lectured to us. We had that responsibility to listen because it was so enriching and so touching. Dominica is going to gain its independence. And I stood up at the Windsor Park when our flag went up and they said, we are here now. You know, and what does that mean?
That's right.
And as you go into it, into the structures and institutions of government being adjusted, you get to understand some level of responsibility we have now, and then we are part of the Commonwealth and we are responsible for our defense and so forth. The Scout movement is not visible anymore. For whatever reason, in those days you didn't have too much of television and radio to that extent. But I still feel that it can be done. And I still feel the youth division have a very important role to continue to play, because I've seen the work that they do at the various youth centers around the island. These are committed people in there. And you meet the young people even as recently as 2 years ago with the Agana program, when we partnered with them and we gave them funds to do a program based on the Agana program, which complemented what they were doing themselves. In other words, let's balance. Let them see something different. And the energy these young people had. We had to meet some of them once in Portsmouth, and they said, we will meet you, Mr. Joseph, in Portsmouth on the beach with some. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to leave, I think it's Kalibishi area. We're going to go through that trail. We will time it. We'll leave early Sunday morning. We're planning to meet on the beach for 3 o'clock. And they came down tired.
On time. Yeah.
Tired, not necessarily physically or mentally, but they completed a feat, and we were all there eating, drinking, laughing in the sea. So that long walk and going in the water in the sea soothes them, and to talk about their experiences.
But Francis, you mentioned it, and it's something I'd like to delve into some more with you. The distractions that are so common nowadays would require a much more resilient and forthright leadership from the adults in the society.
Definitely.
If the young people were to be helped to sort of overcome the distractions. And let me prevail a little bit upon you to mention, as I started doing from last week, an example of a good news event, a good news story, which illustrates the points that we are now talking about, which is how does a society help its young people through this period of intense 24/7 distraction and help them focus on positive, constructive engagement. Last weekend, the Cicero Singers put on a play. It's not a new play, but they put it on in a new way. It's called Once on This Island. And I had the honor, privilege of going to the Saturday night edition, the second night. This play was directed by Alwyn Pulley. The musical director was Pearl Christian. And I will mention subsequently all the other directors and persons who played an important part, the adults, like Alwyn's daughter, Sade Bully, co-director, Shadi, choreographer, Anita Bully, production manager, Curtis Clarendon, stage manager, Connie Prosper, assistant stage manager, Cornel Linton, Aileen Burton, Ingrid Angol. So all these are adults.
All these people in People's Action Theatre.
Right, but they're still
where I was.
They're still here.
Yes.
And the point we're trying to make, and then I want to put it out there because I like to invite people to react to your observations, is that included in the cast of young people, extraordinary young people, Jade Jackson, the son of Ian Jackson.
Wow.
Trevor Samuel, Daniel Wilson, the daughter of Felix and Celia Wilson, Simeon Joseph, and Tasha Peltier of Let the Children Be Children fame.
Yeah.
Marie Pascal Afana, Webster Marie, the Weber, Steve James, PAT, Kareem Bertrand from Newtown, extraordinary voice, and a 9-year-old, Beata Vidal, who played the part of Little Timon, and of course the extraordinary Michael Henderson.
And I recall in PAT Tija Epifuel, that little boy from Citronia area.
That's right.
We traveled to Martinique together with the play and so forth. Yeah.
But here you have now a mixture of people from the age of 9 to persons in their 60s and or more, collaborating to produce an extraordinary production, extraordinary play, musically, choreography, stage decor, everything, organization, punctuality. In other words, all the things that you could say could help illustrate the underpinnings of a serious and modern and maturing society were put together in that play. That's why to me it's a good news story, because it speaks to the fact that you're suggesting to us We can do this. We can.
I know we can.
Direct and guide and nurture our young people. Let's talk more about that. How else? This is in the area of arts and theater and entertainment, and we're performing, so on. Where else, Francis, Joseph? How else?
Before we didn't have this mass media, this social media and so forth. A lot of the initiation came from within, from our own experiences and the plays. We had within the choirs in the schools and in the churches who came out and on special church feast days would sing. Today, the young people are there. There's not much of an agriculture for them to go to and so forth. We need to identify the new leaders now within the schools in those rural communities in particular, that your learning is not only within the classroom, contextualized, and to do a homework. And with my experience, some do feel isolated. It's like there's a distance between that community now and the rest of Dominica, for whatever reason. Maybe the agriculture, the dynamism of seeing things happening, they don't see it like we do when we grew up. So they have to create that thing now themselves. The resources are there, it needs to be diverted. Therefore, we need to have a vibrant cultural division again, and a vibrant youth division. The local government division I mentioned plays a critical role because of the authority they have in assisting to get it organized and validated to a sense of it is part of the community that we have to protect as a local government, and support the scouts, the theater group, the schools who have plays that people can participate in it. In absence of that, everything else will come into play, that people tell young people off that they are this and they are that without any positivity. So we need to have the writers of plays within the rural Castle, so it's Lapley. Granby was thriving. I mean, Granby was just thriving. You go to Granby and something was always happening in Granby, and you felt it. Castlebrooks was one of those enlightening communities as well. At some part of the territory, you felt it. I mean, I used to, even when I was a local government officer, go there and they had their ceremonial dances which came out. I can't remember the name, Carifuna. So we have to get, maybe the young people who are gifted in that are migrating. We have to find out what's happening.
But you're talking about something generic here, which is leadership. Some trigger, some driver, some engine room has to exist.
Yes.
Paul Christian, Alwyn Bully, drove this particular production, but it didn't end there.
No.
If you look to the back page of the program, you'll see that there were other partners and stakeholders that came in and said, this is a good thing to do, and we want to help. And you look at the list of persons and companies who gave support, financial support, other kinds of support. And you see private sector, you see individuals, you see other institutions, which was the case with Carnival before, was the case with Village Feast. Village Feast didn't depend on a minister sponsoring a band, swinging stars or WCK or whatever. It was an opportunity to showcase
that community,
the community.
Feast of St. Peter, Feast of St. Patrick.
So is this part of where we seem to have gone off the roads?
Something drove us, even if there are some people within the communities who migrated. In the feast days and other events, the church played a pivotal role, a critical role, not only because of the parish priest there, but because of the parish committee itself.
Exactly.
The local people who owned their church participated and prepared anything. There are times when there wasn't a resident priest there and there was a visiting priest. They prepared everything. That level of leadership and taking control, the young people then saw it and participated.
How do we instigate that? How do we inspire that?
We have to, by making visible again, from the government point of view, the local authority, the youth division, the cultural division. They have to one way or the other get back in there and partner with the schools. The schools are a massive place. On a weekend, it's empty.
Empty.
During a long weekend, it's empty. They need to get something going and say, we're going to have a bank holiday coming, it's going to be a long holiday. 6 months before, let's plan for it and have a theater, a dance, something.
A fair.
Or something. They have to take it back. St. Joseph was a thriving community. People went there to do a lot of shopping. It's no longer happening. So there's something that happened that took the distraction and the opportunity and the momentum from these people in this country.
Here's one of the things I think that has happened. And I'm listening these days to members of parliament, principally on the government side, being recorded saying, I bring you $60,000 for the village council, or so much $1,000 for the fisherman, and so much this for the that, and so much this for the other. I have spoken to young men in the Newtown area who tell me, but Mr. Martin, the Prime Minister was there, and the other one was there, and this one was there, saying all I have to do is bring my invoice to them, and I'll get sorted out. Some of the young men did not even know what an invoice was. They asked me, Mr. Martin, what is that thing? What is an invoice? So I explained to one or two of them, and they went and they got invoices from suppliers, and they brought the invoices to the ministers and the operatives. And guess what, Francis? These individuals got money in their hands to so-called go and do small business. When you have your business, your youth business trust, which unfortunately seems itself to have been morphed into an arm of that political distribution of money. But you have NDFD, you have the entire cooperative credit union movement with loan officers, people able to help design and write projects, to monitor projects, to do the training. None of these institutions appear to be used anymore.
That's why I say the institutions have been compromised, from local authority to youth groups to social leagues, and the youth groups and many of those there, they don't have that recognition that they had before, where they would plan something and request it. In my days, when someone requests something, we put up sort of a proposal to our department representing them, because we had to be. The British Development Division gave us fund for local development. That was well managed. It went through. We discussed it with the council, brought people in to do various stuff. The youth centers need to be operated and need to be dynamic again. And to just walk into a community and say, here is this amount of money and there's lots more where this come from. It's breaking down the institutions within the community where they can begin to, I mean, when I think of Castleburst and I think of the Emerald Pool, I'm saying, where is the connection to sell the Emerald Pool because it is in our area? Just like you find in the Carrick territory, they sell their area. Collect a fee, put something in there. Make it environmentally friendly in the sense that anybody can walk through it, an elderly person, a young person, a disabled person. Come up with that thing, transform it without losing its aesthetic, they call it, its background. Do something that there can be frequent visitors coming to see, to raise funds locally. Then you bring your school children to see what's happening. You introduce them to nature and the importance of protecting our waters, protecting the trees and everything.
And you teach them.
And you teach them on site. Let them come and appreciate it. When the tram went, I was so saddened, because I said, beyond the tram and going on this thing, there's a lot more that could have been done below. Maybe having animals there. So while you're going through, you see not only the trees, but the animals that are related to that environment. It could be pigs, it could be horses, it could be dogs, it could be snakes. But build that thing up into a bigger environment without affecting the environment, but they leave it natural, enhance it.
But you know, Francis,
we have to.
You know, you watch as you're speaking there. Of course, this is an area very close to my soul, and for instance, opportunities like the tram, like the Waitikobuli National Trail, which actually became the object of a grave injustice to Bernard Wilshire, because that idea for the trail was what came from Bernard.
And I remember he fought strong.
Right?
Yes.
and was taken away from him by operatives of the government on behalf of the Labour Party, and given out, and Bernard was excised from the exercise. Today you read what has become the official record of the Waitukubuli Trail, and Bernard Wiltshire's name is nowhere in that record.
Very sad.
What a grave injustice and a lie. It's like how white people excise out the accomplishments of the dominated and colonized people throughout history.
We still say Christopher Columbus discovered.
Yes.
But we have to identify ours. There's nothing wrong with that.
So,
but in the same breath,
yes,
we have local people who are discovering now and moving on and identify.
But unless we recognize and institutionalize the knowledge, so a young person today should know who Bernard Wiltshire is.
Yes.
Should know that trail was the idea, the dream of a Dominican man who lived for a while in England, saw it because he hiked all over England and Scotland and Wales, came back and saw the relevance of that to Dominica and gave birth. And not just give birth, but launched it.
Yeah.
Launched it. So there, but also the important, you raised the question of the aerial tram, another opportunity to teach young people that nature is not just out there and you go and see it and then turn your back on it. Nature is creating, in the case of the aerial tram, over 70 jobs.
Yes, it did.
How many tour guides in Dominica today? How many people who drive taxi and do tours in their vehicles to point out the natural features of Dominica?
I was so impressed with the tram that Dominic Kelly is telling us this tree is, that tree
absolutely.
is. And
absolutely.
A local guy from the community.
But young people now would see that nature is a source of economic and commercial opportunity, and you can help build an economy
out of that
if you learn how to manage nature well.
And we have the resources and the experts here to guide. That's what a government is for. Listen and be guided accordingly. Your job is to convert it, transform it into policies in Parliament, discuss it, debate it, that everybody understands its relevance. You have to be transparent. You have to be open to new ideas, because the world is moving fast and everyone is competing now for tourism and everything, and we have to sell what we have in the best way possible, but by protecting it.
But we have to do it in a respectful way.
Yes.
You know? And we have to, it's just like if we're going to sort of restore the strength of local government, the name of a Sylvester Joseph has to be like the name of like Henry Ford is, you know, J.J. Thomas
and McDonald Thomas,
absolutely,
and Revere and some Carrot.
But if you ask the average young person under 25, those names mean nothing to them.
No.
In terms of forestry, why do we have such rich forestry? Christopher Maxwell, you know,
he was a PS.
You know,
the cricketer.
From Soufriere, Scott said, it's funny how names kind of just jump out of your brain, you know. But definitely, Felix Gregoire,
yes,
you know, Dave Williams, Lou Gay, AJ Arlington, you know, and all these guys, Colomo Christian, and so on. You know, these names should be like on the lips of every Dominican, particularly the young, so they will understand, you know, these guys built their careers on protecting something for us. So we too now can build our careers, maybe not on but maybe our career is to develop a drone, the use of drones, etc., to articulate or monitor our natural system. But you see, Francis, what's wrong with us? These ideas, look at how so easily they come off our lips. What's wrong with us at this time that these things are not driving our economy?
I don't think people are listening, and I don't think the television is an excuse per se. because the television has so much of the nature, if you put on the right channels, that you see certain things happening around the world. I mean, today I was watching a lot of stuff happening in Africa and the floods, and in Asia. I was watching a documentary about India and what's happening in that particular area. It's all there, and they are making it reach on television now. Maybe we need to direct our young people to look out for the Animal Planet or the nature programs and certain things. We have to sell, we say Nature Island for tourism. We have to begin to be the principal one doing that now in the Eastern Caribbean.
But it has
Asia and so on, they promote it. I mean, you go to the Highlands of Scotland, they talk about those things. In Wales, even within London itself, those things are not pushed by central government.
No.
By the local authority, and they have the resources right there
to do it. But they also benefit from the fees that are paid by the visitors who come to look at those things.
Yes. And school children go there, so there is continuity. Yeah. They open it up, but they protect it as well. We can do it. Most of our best people been to London, Scotland, States, Canada to study those things. They see it and they come back here. We have to find them.
But you know, Francis, there are some extraordinary young people in Dominica. I've mentioned a couple of them as per the young girl, Vidal, 9 years old. Astounding voice, great acting, natural acting ability. There's this another young woman, not 9 years old, she's a bit older, graduate of the State College. Her name is Callista Sango. She's been my guest here a couple of times. She used to join the farmers on Farmers Cry. You might remember that voice.
Yes.
You know, Callista has just written a book. She's actually written a book which will be published not long from now, we hope, which speaks to how does she, as a young Dominican woman, trained in agricultural services provision, how does she see the prospects for agriculture in Dominica? I mean, such a brave girl, brave, courageous young woman to tackle something. And you look around you and you say, but where are the adults in this thing? No, she was inspired by a lot of adults, by people like Mr. Whitney Louis and so on, but she took the ball and she decided to run with it. Yeah. There are other young men on the side of the road, some of them. You go into Yampis, you go into, all them kind of things, and you see them trying, some of them, trying on the side of the road, trying to do something as mechanics, as repairers of bikes, or so whatever. But there are a number of those young people who are trying their best to make a living for themselves. Yeah. Not going out there begging for money, you understand? Or not waiting for somebody to come and give them. Is bring your bike, let me fix it, and pay me to fix your bike. Amen. As opposed to giving me $50 when you have it, or as you want me to do something for you. And now, how do we prevent that entrepreneurial young person from being destroyed and becoming, if you will, just another mendicant, a political beggar, waiting for the politician to come and say, here, hold that, go and do that for me, hold that, go and shout at that meeting, hold that, go and make a noise, hold that, because that's, to me, one of the biggest dismantlers of our young people, is the kind of, and I'm seeing it already in Roseau. I'm seeing people for the Labour Party handing out money already to young people in Roseau.
Those are the people dismantling the society from its organized way, where people are looking for areas where they can invest in themselves and their country and benefit it, like this young lady you talk about. Like the young people I met in Silver Lake who explained to me how Silver Lake came about. Absolutely. And they ran in that thing and they enjoyed it. There's a vibrancy in Silver Lake, I feel, that has a lot of potential for these young people to learn. And it could be a tourist site, I think.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you that. It could be that someone is, the way the young boys, the parents said 3 young boys come, between 9 and 12, take Mr. Joseph down there and talk to him. And they explained to me Silver Lake, the moon, why it was called Silver Lake, and the reflection of it. And the thing hits on the back. I mean, I was so moved. Can you imagine they are tourist guides and they receive some money to build up their community and build up that reservoir they have and that gem they have?
Right.
It keeps them away from drugs. It makes them feel important. So I don't think that there is a prominent national plan now for Dominica guiding us and institutions and demanding that this is the path we have to follow.
In fact, what I see is
it's not spontaneous.
It's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I see some otherwise really good people, some of them civil servants, public servants, who started off being really good and serious about their work with the community, who have become political operatives, who have clearly benefited materially from their agreeing to do the will of the politician.
That seems to be a trend now.
While the clients for whom they were hired to work are experiencing enormous difficulty. It's 6:47. Francis Joseph is in the house. We're talking governance and the economy, but from an interesting new angle, which is the plight of and the prospects for our young people who are the architects of any future Dominica that we can see we are going to have. So we have a caller on the line. We're going to take our first caller. This is at 6:47 and 43. Good evening, caller. Go right ahead, please. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Happy, and good evening to Mr. Joseph, your guest.
Hey, Peter. How are you, man?
Yes. Oh, I'm fine. I always listen to your program.
Well, thank you for that.
That is a very important discussion, because Dominicans must realize that we have been destroying our entire society, a society that was built to encourage productivity and stimulate creativity. And when you listen to our independent songs, I was listening to some today. I mean, all those songs were created in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and maybe in the 90s. So for the last decade, for the last 15, 20 years, we have not even been able to create a new song to add to our cultural song. You know, there's no creativity in the country, no production, no productivity. People just seem to want to just negotiate for favors. I mean, you can't have a country like that. And I think that is the foundation of our problem, where young people are not given the opportunity to be creative, to be productive, to take initiative, take risk for their own personal development and development of their family and the country. So I think that has been destroyed because politicians believe that they can stay in power forever by creating favors and division in this society.
Well, Peter, we have to turn the corner on that, turn away from that, otherwise Dominica has no future. And I refuse to believe that.
The thing is, what people don't realize that even if you're not living in the country, Dominica is like your parent.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you're part of this country, you're created by this country. And every Dominican abroad wants to have the opportunity to come back and contribute to their country. But the environment must be right, there must be the right stimulation for you to come back and be part of what's going on.
But here's my proposal, Peter. My proposal is that Dominicans living overseas, okay, Francis and I are talking, and we have put out already a number of, fairly interesting ideas, I think, and it would be nice if Dominicans living overseas, when they came on vacation, instead of just, visiting the family and friends and so on, make inquiries as to, are there any people in my home community or other communities who could benefit from my expertise, benefit from, certain kinds of equipment, certain kinds of training that I could give, etc., so that in fact the young people would become targeted, deliberately targeted, as opposed to being, if you will, just cannon fodder.
Well, Happy, now when you visit, all you hear in the room, what you bring for me, what you have for me. Everybody believes that life is just somebody getting some money and just sharing around. Because that's the leadership. That's the leadership they know. That's just giving, wait and get. And that's what we have lost in Dominica.
But we need to break that. We need to break that.
Well, it's going to be a challenge because people don't believe that somebody must give them, and that is danger. That's real danger for Dominica. Happy.
Okay, Peter. Thank you, man.
Good.
Thanks a lot.
Good. But you see the challenge right there, Francis, is that somebody like a Peter Carbon, Woodford Hill, former Minister of Agriculture, a professional agriculturalist, distinguishing himself, with work in the United States, in the U.S. Department of Agriculture, that's who we sent away. That's who we drove away. His daughter, a young professional agricultural person as well. That's who we drove away. And here we are saying, hey, how can we help our young people recover? How can we find a way to give them the kind of training? I'm reading this week of a training program financed by some international agency, or I think some government, the European Union, for agro-processors. So they did the training, and they provided some basic equipment so that the agro-processors, many young people and young adults could actually move along to the tune of about $86,000 with. But I'm saying, but we're hearing people giving away much more money than that.
Much more.
But what is the value now of having given away some money as opposed to having invested in a training program and then leaving the equipment that allows them to put the training into practice? And that's what's missing. And it seems to me there are a whole bunch of us as Dominicans who understand what's wrong, Francis.
We do. And it hurts.
And yet.
Yeah. I mean, there is that opportunity for us out there, and the distractions there, as you said, just giving up money without knowing what returns you're going to get. It's like someone desperately needs some cash to do something now, and they feel satisfied. We have to get into the mood and the discipline and the principle of investing, looking out for outcomes, because we have young people coming forward. We have young people who are going to be older and teenagers at some point. That message needs to go somewhere, and it is not sinking, it's not getting there, and it appears maybe those who know it and are in there are compromised and are unable. So it's like, come, I know you are hungry, I will send some food up for you, I will do this for you. That's not development. That's not social development. That's not economic development.
Because
that's not sustainable development.
What you're doing is you're creating the next adult generation who will not even know how to work.
Clueless.
They'll only know how to wait to receive a handout.
Clueless about development, to take this country one step further.
But that happens when the leadership that perpetuates that kind of beggar thy neighbor approach itself. I mean, I often do that, I go through the list of the members of cabinet and I ask myself one question: what were they doing before they got to cabinet? What did they distinguish themselves at? Here we have a Francis Joseph, and we can catalog all the things that you've done, all the lives you have impacted, the sacrifices you have made, the volunteering you have done, etc., etc., the skills you have, and I juxtapose that with the list of persons in the cabinet, with one or two exceptions, maybe. And it is no surprise to me that if you've never, ever done a serious day of hard work, never mind they will tell you, oh, I come from a poor family, yeah, you come from a poor family, but did you work to help your family no longer be poor?
That's correct.
And what was your contribution to defeating poverty for you and your family, and so forth and so on? And as a result, what is the experience you bring to this job?
Sure.
And Francis, that is a big part of the problem we have, is that we have people in positions of authority who do not know. They genuinely do not know how to do the job, which means they are not qualified.
The whole concept of development and developing a country, giving it that strong base for continuity, I have always expounded, is important. The institutions are there, the various ministries are there, the various resources are there, and you have the technical people who we sent out to study, to come back, to be able to be the principal advisors to those who profess to want to be politicians. That's important. There's nothing wrong in you being a politician.
No,
listen
absolutely.
to your technical person. Be guided by what they are saying. Trust them. Your job is to make that, is to advocate for them when you go to cabinet or elsewhere.
Yeah.
But listen to it. It's development is not a quick fix thing. It's not. Our communities, I say, are deteriorating, are isolated, and things are not happening.
Right.
And we need to understand that, and they need, as you articulated, they need to be aware of that. Very important.
Yeah. We're going to take a break now, folks. It's now 6:56. I was hoping to receive a call from one of my colleagues in the US because, you know, some really extraordinary events are occurring in New York City, in the court system there, that have direct relevance to Dominica. And some other events are unfolding in other courts in other parts of the world that also have significant bearing to what's going on and what could happen in Dominica. But we'll wait to see if my colleague calls, and if not, we'll just continue. We'll share with you what we have. Let's just take a listen again to Hugh Masekela, who tries to remind us that we need to listen to each other. Masekela, who at one time was married to Miriam Makeba, another giant of music from South Africa.
Marilyn in the UK has said hello to you. I think she's
Who's it? Marilyn? Oh, yes. Hi, Marilyn. Always a joy knowing that you're listening. Let's take a call from one of our listeners. Good evening, caller. You're welcome. We have Francis Joseph in the house.
Good evening, African Martin. How do you do?
Mr. Shillingford.
How are you, sir?
Oh, we're doing very well, man. We're doing well.
Good on my good body there, Mr. Francis Joseph.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. I'm well, thanks.
What a dynamic young man.
Thank you.
I'm going to take the opportunity to honor both you and Mr. Francis there. I'm going to start calling you Sir African Matter. And Francis, I'll have to call him Sir Francis Joseph.
Merci, Papa.
I feel honored.
A dynamic program this morning with Matt Pelty. I couldn't help but stay home to listen to the end.
Thank you, sir.
Oh my goodness. We definitely have to make some drastic changes. We need to turn that economy around. We need to do something. We need to stop this corruption. Lots of things we have to do, and we have to do it immediately. We cannot wait any longer.
True.
I'm seeing my country just going down a slippery road, and we need to stop it now. We need to stop it. And if we have a concern, my friend built a house up at Munscop close to Last Point. And she's on vacation in Dominica, and she called me and told me, I saw the crack. We had a first time conversation where she showed me all the cracks with Roger Williams blasting up at that Last Point, and she said when he blasts, the whole house just crumbling up. And I would like you to do something about that for me. I feel you can do it very seriously for me, please.
Okay. We will certainly make some inquiries, because I have a number of similar inquiries to make. about things going on in Dominica. Thank you so much, Norman. Always a pleasure.
My pleasure, Afi, and I'm listening. I'm going to listen.
Okay,
attentively.
Very good.
So Afi and Sir Francis, good night. God bless you guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
All right, Sir Norman.
Oh boy, I'm flattered.
No, but Norman does raise another important
Yes.
question, and maybe we can use it to sort of extend the discussion, because about governance of an economy that is largely driven by its natural attributes, its lands, its water, its forests, its beaches, its animal life and plant life and so forth. So that anything we do with these resources has to be done well according to the best available practices. And one of those best available practices is environmental impact assessments, designed to ensure that the project is done well, not only for commercial purposes, but well in terms of preserving and protecting what in many cases was the primary reason for the project being put here anyway, in the case of tourism, for example. So I do have issues relating to environmental impact assessments for the Kempinski Hotel, for example, down at the Cabritz. That is a highly sensitive area. It's a swampy area. It's an area for certain kinds of wildlife, bird life and fish life. And the hotel is being built at sea level. From the point of view of the property itself, I am concerned about the safety of that property. And I'm concerned about the fact that if you have a 3 or whatever 100-room hotel on the beach level, water levels, sea level, and we have the kind of storms that we've been having and are going to continue to have, what's going to be the case? You know, is there no interest in the safety of the guests and of the workers who will be Dominican, who will be in that hotel? Will they be able to get away? Where will they go to? What about sewage? And what about grey water? Is there a sewage treatment plant going to be included in the design and construction of that hotel? Because I can't imagine the sewage would go out in a pipe into the bay, either Prince Rupert's Bay or Douglas Bay, and fishing and fisheries and beach, the very beach that they want to keep and so could be jeopardized, as has happened in the case of many other countries, tropical countries. So, I mean, why is the EIA for that project not a public document?
I was about to ask.
By law, it is supposed to be a public document.
Does the Portsmouth Council know about this, and were they part of all of those things?
The Portsmouth Council, I'm afraid, didn't pay much attention to any of these considerations.
And why? This is the local authority for the area to help promote, and as I make reference to what local government is elsewhere, this, you're supposed to sit down with them because they have to own it. It's on their territory.
They are the local stakeholders.
They are the local stakeholders. How much are they involved?
Yeah.
Was it put up in a sort of out there that people can walk into the council, which gives them that prominence and authority, that they want to look to see what the plan is so that the people can contribute to it, and they are supposed to be aware of it. Is it that they were just bypassed and this thing went on because we want development?
The benefits, the so-called benefits of the property were sold mostly as jobs in construction and jobs during period of operation. But there are other things. I mean, if the hotel operates and over a period of 5 or 10 years completely deteriorates that physical place, it means there'll be flooding where there was no flooding before. You know, it means the wildlife that was an attraction for the visitors will no longer be there. It means the beach and the reefs in the area that are already under stress from erosion and chemical runoff and so forth may be all. And when your reefs are gone, any swelling, any sea swell as a result of bad weather will come further inland. And I'm raising this now, Francis, also because about young people. If we're thinking 10, 20 years down the road, which is the young person's life, they are young adults. Are we doing things today that appear to be good, but are actually jeopardizing, endangering the young life of the next generation of Dominicans? And these are the questions that high schools should be asking their students to study. The state college should be asking its students to take attention to.
Yeah.
And frankly, other professional associations in the society
That's correct.
should be asking those same kind of questions. Otherwise, we seem quite prepared to mortgage the future of our young people against a short-term, immediate gain. And that sends a really nasty signal to young people.
And we have a ministry or department responsible for youth development.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, it's well resourced.
Yes.
But how much is it that they've been consulted? The general picture in putting up that sort of development there,
Mm-hmm.
which, as you say, takes in the young people. What role do you think this plays?
Yeah.
And where are we? I mean, I drove through there on Wednesday earlier this
Yeah.
week,
Yeah.
and last week, sorry. And you saw this thing going up, and you're right. The couple of us were there says this thing is right there on the beach.
It's on the beach.
It's
Yeah.
right there on the beach,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of this development stuff going on there. Is Portsmouth ready for that sort of development that is going on there, and in what way? I mean, that needs to be sold to the young people because they have potential. If they go to school, what are they going to study to sustain that thing in the hotel industry, in tourism industry, in promoting tourism, in the gifts and the sort of artifacts that are needed that people want as tokens that they can go back with.
There's a caller trying to reach us, Francis. Let's see if we can bring him in. Good evening, caller. Thank you for being patient.
Thank you very much. You're a patient guy. I would compliment you and Francis.
Hey, my partner.
My boy, I really deeply appreciated your discussion with Matt. I didn't hear all of it, Francis, but you're right on target. Everything you said was absolutely on point.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
want to thank you, and I want to thank this patriot, this veteran here, Aki Martin. Thank you so much for your tremendous contribution to the patriotic movement of this country, Aki Martin and Francis and all the other patriots. You know, Aki, there is an interesting report by the West Indian Commission following the Treaty of Chaguaramas in 1973, which established CARICOM. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And there's an interesting report, and you know, as the issues that you're discussing, they're referenced, and there's a key dynamic here that is referred to, addressed in the report, a CARICOM Charter of Civil Society.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the report, section number 19.19 of that report says, the report reflects in many of its recommendations. In fact, a commission was set up to review CARICOM and how far they were progressing with respect to the heads of state, the countries were progressing with respect to CARICOM. And that report says, on point 19, the report reflects in many of its recommendations the disquiet the commission found among West Indian publics in relation to governance. Mm-hmm. The report draws attention to this disquiet with respect to such matters as a free press, a fair and open democratic process, the effective functioning of the parliamentary system, the absence of corruption from public life, respect for the rights of women and children and youth, I suppose, and the right of association, freedom from political victimization, respect for religious and cultural diversity, greater accountability and transparency in government, greater public access to information, all elements of civil society that do not depend on a country's economic circumstances. And the report highlights other elements that do not require resources, but are in urgent need of greater attention, health, education, and so on. Right. But the point you raise, I'm saying to say that, you know, we have a major problem with CARICOM. And that's what this report by the Commission, after they reviewed how CARICOM was getting along after the Treaty of Chaguaramas in 1973. And these things still exist today in Dominica. The matters that you're discussing now demonstrate that our government here does not pay attention to the importance of the youth. Civil society, they are not involved or engaged in any meaningful way. And as a result, our democracy is worse for that. Yeah. So, when, you know, consultation and a good governance, these are important functions of a progressive country, of a free democratic society. And the matters you raise about engaging our youth and the corruption, the handing out of money by ministers to individuals and all this kind of corruption. have been raised by this group of men that reviewed how CARICOM was getting along with respect to all these charters that have been set up for the improvement of governance in this country.
Yeah.
So I don't know what we have to continue speaking on the issues, and I thank you and Francis for your great contribution to the discourse, and I look forward to real action take place. I'm an optimist, and I believe that things can happen and will happen to change the matter. The one thing point as I leave, I was surprised to read in the Barbados Nation that the Bar Association of Barbados were taking the Attorney General to court on a matter that they were unhappy with. And I'm saying in Dominica, we don't even hear the Bar Association speaking bravely and openly on matters that concern our democracy. And you know, I mean, although there are problems in Barbados, but you can see that they are more aware, they are more conscious nation, and we have to work to ensure that Dominica arises at some point at that level of consciousness. Thank you, gentlemen. God bless you.
Thank you.
I hope the gentleman from overseas does call.
I'm looking forward to his call. If he
continue the great work, my brother.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, my friend. Let's take a few more calls. Good evening, caller. You're next.
Good evening, Mr. Mate and Mr. Joseph.
Good evening.
I just want to kind of strengthen the point on the Whitey Kubuli trade.
Yeah.
Just about 6 weeks ago, there was a gentleman from Geotech out of Germany.
Yeah.
Who he and his wife operate a business where they get clients and they recommend certain hiking areas around the world to them. And here it was. They actually came to my parents' facility for a few days, and then they went all over for over 2 weeks, visiting the different sites of the Whitey Kubuli Trail.
Okay.
And what that did, it was able to give the small accommodation operators the opportunity to house and to feed this gentleman and his wife. So the brainchild of Bernard Wilshire, which is now a reality on the ground, is something that I think we as Dominicans need to rally around and say, here is something that is Dominican. Here is something that we all can stand up, rally around and claim, and make it be the best trail in the world. Because the trail have wonders to behold. And so I think we have a product that we need to certainly give some more attention to. I've had other people who are hikers, professional hikers, and they've given me little feedback here and there. But we really need to look at that trail as a treasure and let us do what it takes to get that trail.
But one of the things, caller, of Bernard, one of the underlying tenets of his idea for the trail was that it would be the communities in proximity to the trail who would have stewardship over the trail, who would maintain it, who would be the guides, who would provide safety and rescue, who would do the hospitality or guide people to the hospitality facilities available and so on. So that the trail actually would bring net equitable distributed benefit to people all over the island. That was the idea behind it.
Probably to a certain extent that wasn't taken up. I still think it is the best idea in terms of the overall management of the trail and claiming ownership by community to community. So all Dominicans all over in the different segments have a contribution and they have a value to give and they have something to benefit from the trail.
Yeah.
On another matter, as you all were speaking about the location of hotels and that sort of thing, I think 2 or 3 years ago, I was actually reading on the story of hotels that were being built or that were built around the coastal lines in Jamaica. And the report that was coming is that the fishermen were saying that they had to actually keep going further and further away
to fish
to get the catch that they would normally get closer to land. I do not want to say anything for people to misconstrue what you're saying, that you're against development and you're against hotels. All I'm saying, Jamaica have had an experience. Let us not go blindly into things. Let us learn from the experience to ensure that what we do is that we benefit one group of people will not negatively impact on another group of people who have been involved in fishing as their livelihood. Let us do development in a comprehensive. Thank you.
Absolutely, and that is actually the underlying proposition of the integrated development plan, of the growth and social protection strategy, of the low carbon climate resilience strategy, all of which are now officially approved development plans of Dominica. But unfortunately, Francis, not one of them is being implemented. Not one. Development now seems to be a Vaiki by Simi Gwen, it's like you're throwing corn for fall or throwing coconut for fall kind of thing, that kind of, as opposed to a studied method, methodical approach, scientific, professional approach.
Definitely.
That would stimulate the young generation to go ahead and get your degrees, get your training, and so on and so forth. We need carpenters. We need engine repairers. We need lift operators. We need, a whole range of skilled persons.
We need those things too. You have to review.
Absolutely.
We have to assess after months of activities that you have put in place that it is working, and where you're going. Why is it working? And to strengthen it and you move on, because you have a new generation coming up.
Absolutely. We have a few more calls. Let's see if we can take a few more. Good evening, caller. You're next.
Good evening, Mr. Affy.
Mr. Magloire, you know the document I have in front of you. I believe you have a camera looking at me, Mr. Magloire. The name of the document is Dominica Geothermal Energy Development Project.
Yes, sir.
And then you call. Go ahead, Mr. Magloire.
And good evening to your guest.
Good evening, Mr. Magloire.
Yes. Well, Mr. Affy, what you have on your agenda tonight?
Well, we're talking about what are we doing today that will either help or hurt the future of young people in Dominica?
Well, my suggestion, the first one, I touching on agriculture. Because if you're sick and you cannot take no meal, it's down you going. You have to check a doctor. The doctor have to make sure you attend you and to make sure as soon you start to take a little appetite, you'll go back to your little strength. But you see, agriculture, as you mentioned about skills, yes, carpenter, have all types.
Yes.
And to do that, we have to make sure we've hard work. Hard work doesn't kill. Hard work gives you more energy. You only just have when you know you're working hard. You support yourself 100%. Don't work hard, and when you finish, go and drink and get drunk, do those nonsense you bringing down your body. But if you continue on that path, you will see your way. Because Mr. Affy, I will always say it till my last day. Mr. Affy, I look at Dominica today. Every day God give me the opportunity. I wake up and I see another bright and prosperous new day. And to see how hard we work to achieve the little we achieve today. I could remember any time of Mary Eugenia Charles. I had all type of crop. I don't speaking about coconut because Loda is too windy, don't make that much coconut. She get a market for pink grapefruit. And I go and I plant an acre. And that acre, when I start to harvest, I was supplying Martinique and Guadeloupe. 6,000 pink for Martinique Saturday, 6,000 pink for Guadeloupe on Sunday. Include the white one, orange, grafted, and dashing. So, Mr. Affy, if we make sure anybody, our tourists, when they come with different type of things we're producing, we can make a good income and we can see our way. But if we build those hotels, when they come, they're only going to walk inside, and when they finish, there is nothing success, something to build them and to see what we can offer with our produce. That is number one. And number two, Like before I built my house, I saw my wood. And I built my house only by the galvanized. Today, yes, technology, yes, today is a better. But when you choose your moon, you choose the wood, and when you see you build the house, you have a solid house. So it is means and ways where we can help ourselves, but we reach a stage now, I don't want to keep you long, we reach a stage now, handout are going to bring us nowhere. Handout crippling people. And I calling on the Prime Minister, I heard him mention something, I will bring it out tonight again. If you have a young girl at your home, yes, your boyfriend or your husband, you make a mistake, you come with a child, I will accept it. But you mean to tell me bringing free child for me and your mother to take care and the man on street? And I hearing the Prime Minister saying he cannot see that. Well, you have to see it. Let the woman the man that give him the child, let the man work and support his child. That is not your child. You're making people more lazy. But if we have to go there, I'm sorry for the next generation, because what they will be facing, they will not be able to bear it. Mr. Afi, have a wonderful evening on your guest. I'm listening to the balance of the program. And bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. McGlaw. Mr. McGlaw is 84, 85. I forget how many years Mr. McGlaw is. And yet, he remains one of the most active persons engaging national issues on national radio.
Very articulate and very strong.
You know, and on point in most cases about his contributions. And I raised that because Mr. McGlaw has been one of the persons who's been keeping us reminded of the fact that there is a geothermal project on the way in the Roseau Valley.
Always.
And there are some really serious issues around that geothermal project. You're not hearing too much about it because apparently there's an attempt now from a 150 megawatt plant to a 50 megawatt to a 10 to a 7, maybe now to a 3.5 megawatt.
And what does that mean? Why is it going on like that?
And it means that the tremendous sensitivity of the Roseau Valley as an ecological area in Dominica, which is actually, by all the studies of the past, going back many years, geologically, forest studies, water studies, and so on, tell you that this is a highly sensitive area. And probably the best use of that area is what it's doing now as a visitation site, what they call a low impact commercial development, private homes, not large facilities, not large hotels, maintaining your forest because it's key to maintaining your soil and your water regimes, etc. Certainly attempting to avoid too much disturbance of the geothermal resources in the area. And yet, you know, we're seeing, I'm following it very closely because we have a team from New Zealand now carrying out some studies to supposedly make the final recommendations and so on. And we are aware that the French government just a year or two ago did a major study. And that study, in my views, having spoken to the team, was what the French used to justify their pulling out of that project.
Oh, really?
Because it was, the area was too sensitive for anything like a major geothermal project. This is not to say you cannot do a 7 megawatt plant, but the truth is a 7 megawatt plant will have minimal impact on the cost of electricity in Dominica. It will be a showpiece. It might be, you could consider it, like a visitation site, as opposed to a serious commercial project. Because the documents and the research tell you need between 30 and 50 megawatts of power to begin to register an impact on the national cost and price structure of energy in your country. And this is well established. There's a World Bank report that has put that out. And so the question I am raising tonight, why the silence? Where are the updates? Where are the regular reports to the country, not just to the people in Loda or Wharton Wavenham or Trafalgar, Mont Prosper, Coptall, Emsall, Bath Estate, the city of Roseau? The French study identified all these communities as the impact area for a project like this, which means that progress reports have to be presented to these communities.
Do we know what's, I mean, the reason I'm asking this now, there's a minister responsible for energy. Parliament should not just be called for passing a bill, but for saying we have a proposal like this, and let's bring it to Parliament.
Absolutely.
And have an educated, disciplined discussion. You know, without all the fighting, if I want to use that word. You know, it doesn't have to be a meeting where you have to make some decisions, but let us discuss this thing at that level, that the Dominican people can hear what's happening. In the UK, in the US, you always hear there's some discussion going on within their parliaments about specific things,
projects,
about
key projects,
about this is the proposal we have for this area, and there is a discussion about it. Why can't we elevate ourselves to that standard?
Right now, I understand, Francis, that there are discussions going on with people in the valley area about acquiring their lands for, quote unquote, for the project, for the small geothermal plant project, you know, and so, you know, people are being enticed, you know, because a lot of the farmers are elderly, Mr. McGlaw, you know, elderly persons, their children are not interested in farming. The children would be probably encouraging them to sell their land, get the money so that they can get their share of the money and go about their business.
And move them somewhere else.
And the net effect is that the valley becomes, you know, minus the people who are most likely to care about its sustainability. You have a re-injection well in Trafalgar, and you have the power well, the source well up in Loda. So you have to run pipes somewhere between Loda and Trafalgar. These things need to be in the public domain.
We need to discuss it.
The people in tourism need to be asking about this, but they don't care, they don't appear to care. Oh, you know how it is now? People, boy, you know those fellas already, they're afraid to sound like they're criticizing or sound like they're against the project for fear that something will happen
the
to
chief
them.
Environmental officer and other people within that sort
They
of
have a responsibility.
Can they just write a paper and say, this is what it is, and we were recommending this because of the reports and so on, and this is our advice to government and the people of Dominica.
Absolutely.
And let's have a debate on it.
Let's see if we can get the input of this caller. Good evening, caller. Thank you for being patient.
Yes, good evening up there and your guest in studio.
Hey, how you doing, big man?
I'm the trucker on the highway tuning into the big station.
Okay, man. Good to have you always. What's up?
Yes, I've been talking about that geothermal. I mean, while they were doing that drilling, I went online and I researched.
Yes.
And this thing is a serious situation. Like you said, that's a place supposed to be have visitation. Have people, tourists come and visit and take care, manicure the area. Because first of all, you don't build a geothermal plant in the proximity of a residential area.
Exactly.
Exactly. If in case there's a mishap, and I called, you know, while they were doing that, I called the radio station while they had that thing going on, and I said, if there's
an accident,
see that what an accident, how are the people gonna escape? Where's the path? And sometimes that thing might just take the path where the people are gonna go. What are they gonna do? And also, whatever they have up there, you don't have a shut-off valve for that.
That's right.
There's no shut-off valve. You see, like if some problem with the power, they can shut off the generator. That geothermal plant, what they did up there, there's no shut-off valve.
No.
So that thing will be on for eternity. So that's why the villagers were supposed to come together and demand the government, no, research first before you do that drilling.
Yeah.
Because our life could be any minute now, anything could happen. And remember, they were pumping water while they were drilling, and I understood that there was a river below underneath, and they drilled through that river.
That's correct.
So you never know, the whole Emsall, Bath Estate, Mont Prosper, anything or that whole thing just come down on us.
Well,
Calm down. You understand? I mean, I don't want it to happen. I hope everything is safe. But whatever the trouble nature, that's one thing. You don't mess with a live volcano.
Or if you,
the people listening.
Thank you. Okay, my brother.
Thank you, Ati.
Right, and you know, all the water up in the valley eventually comes down to the Rosa River, and the Rosa River runs right through the middle of Roseau, and is a magnificent feature of the city of Roseau. If anything happens up in the valley, and it's quite possible anything could happen, and wherever the water ends up, it's going to end up at the lowest point, and the lowest point of that Rosa Valley water system is the Rosa River. So let's be clear. Let's be clear that that in fact this is definitely something that needs to be done with the best science, with the most transparency, and a great degree of caution, is because you're doing something where people are living. The power well is not more, in some cases, not more than 50 yards or 50 meters from residential homes. Okay? The re-injection well is right next to a football field, a soccer field.
So that's a community we are.
Yeah, it's a community.
Embedded within an environment which, if you interfere with, you're likely to be.
If you run into any problems, you place people immediately at risk, and this is one of the things that were pointed out by the French study. Let's see if we can get a few more of these calls. It sounds like our previous caller maybe didn't properly hang up his phone. Okay, let's take this caller. Good evening, caller. Thank you so much for being.
I praises, thanks, blessings, and glory to all those with humanity. I see blessings in a family, sir.
Tyrone, how are you, man?
I'm giving thanks, Dr. Joseph. Blessings to you, sir.
Blessings to you, sir. Good evening.
To you and your family, sir.
Thank you.
I think it's very interesting. Dr. Vince Anderson on DBS, I think last week or week before.
A week before, yeah.
And I engaged him and I asked him a few questions, but one, I don't know, it was a deliberate, moving away from it, or diversion. Because asking him how much money so far was spent on the geothermal. And he went to all where they get grants and where they took a loan and all of that, and that. But that current situation is talking about. I'm talking about. You remember they said they went to that Sofri and that there wasn't an excavator doing nothing. There were all of a sudden a couple millions of dollars that was spent. They're happy.
That's correct.
And a particular lawyer had a good chunk of that as well. So I was telling Cecil Joseph a couple of days after, because the program was short. He did not answer. He deliberately avoided the question, and he took offense. Took me to task, and I said, okay, he may have forgotten, and he agreed with that one. But I don't think Vince wanted to talk about the $60 million I heard that was spent, and they did not start drilling us yet, after.
That's true.
So these guys there, I mean, come on, these guys are having a field day, and they all are laughing all the way to the bank after, and as usual after, they're so preoccupied in remaining in power indefinitely. Everything they start, if it comes to an end, it's incomplete, and there's a level of almost a fragility. It is very fragile after, because enough concrete was not used, enough steel, enough, there was no feasibility study done, and they love shortcuts after the quick way. But the other thing saying, long road draw sweat, but short road draw blood. So they love the short road, and they do not see the consequences. But it's very interesting to listen to the whole thing. After you heard about the report, the request from Homeland Security having to do with the submission of all these diplomatic appointments.
Yes.
Friday is the deadline, I think it is.
The 21st.
And we are not hearing nothing.
No.
Could it be that we're going to get another scapegoat? The U.S. and Lennox Linton, not the opposition again, it is Lennox Linton, like the goat skin on the ticket drum, happy. So they maybe you get Trump to start beaking on, So if we get sanctioned, if we fail to comply, because the U.S. Homeland Security is saying that if you are unable to come up with the information by that time, you could request our assistance. Do you think the high and mighty would want Maduro and all these guys in in the region that playing bad to see he is being submissive, I think.
Not only that, they have a lot of their own party operatives who are not in good standing with the United States Immigration Department, who would also end up being at risk if they have to supply all the biodata that the U.S. Homeland Security is now requiring. But guess what? Homeland Security knows where they all are.
But after you, what you do, that's what I tell them. I said they know where they are already. But they want to see how sincere they are.
That's right.
To request the information from them and then to nail them to the cross.
Absolutely.
They will be left with no choice. But something else quickly. You heard about, I said, mass in the cemetery with another information having to do with another barrel of guns?
I heard that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, you heard about the burial of maybe tons of 42 seeds? And I mean, you know, these things have preservatives, and if they're being...
It's very dangerous. Very dangerous. You have an agricultural country and
these guys are sick, they burn or they bury...
Coffee.
Why is it coffee? The coffee bean?
Yeah.
No, these guys are systematically destroying the agricultural sector, you know.
They're poisoning the environment. That's what they're doing.
The environment as well.
Yeah.
So it is very sad to see where we are. So then you have now, quickly running through them, Afi. You have the search for a laptop, a minister laptop, but all of a sudden it was these guys like they're looking for guns, Afi. They're looking for guns and they refuse to say it's a very influential minister laptop that disappeared.
Well, somebody probably has it, I hope.
But the other thing I said, Mr. Joseph was there this morning. You're hearing about the Newtown Primary School, that Chinese built primary school.
Yes.
A part of it is designated for a health center.
I'm hearing that. What is that about? I mean, I didn't follow.
Celia Nicholas said that she's grieving. Celia Nicholas, I heard on TV, she said she's heard of grieving words to that effect.
So the new school.
I can't believe what she's hearing.
Wow.
I reckon you're going to have children in the midst of, you know, when you have, in this day and age, you have all kind of contagious disease. We hear lately about Ebola, we hear about that thing, the cholera, we hear about Zika, and all kinds of strange diseases we never heard about before. And then you're going to have a health center within the setting of a primary school, I think. And
today we're talking about young people and protecting them, and you're telling me that, in fact, a medical facility is going to be part of a school? But that is what they're doing. They're talking about young people while they're abusing them and using them. Okay. Boys like girls as well. Thank you. All right. Thanks, man. These are terribly disturbing bits and pieces of information.
Isn't there anybody who has standards to guide and to bring out to say, if something is going to happen in a particular area, this is the state guideline, which tells us if this should happen or not, or what needs to be put in place? I would imagine so, Francis. There's planning laws in the country, and there's a development and planning corporation. There's a board that's supposed to sit on things and approve or disapprove. Then they're supposed to work with that document to say, excuse me, I'm here to represent this document. What are you doing here? Did you come to us for advice? Let's take it back to our primary theme, which is what must this be doing to a young person making a decision as to whether they want to make the rest of their life here in Dominica, or whether they want to get on the first available pui and leave the country. What must this be doing? This utter chaos, this disrespect for a population by not sharing information with the population, when in fact the issues at hand are likely to have impact on that same population. Anybody, any professional who is here and feel that their skills and their training is not wanted, especially if it has been supported by the state, they would think, look, I want to go somewhere where I can be respected. At least. And a young person will hear that and will start looking out and say, so what am I going to be doing now? Yeah. And it's like planning to get out as against planning to see how I can work within my country now to do it. Okay, 6:39. We'll take as many of your calls as we can. We're going to take this one, and we'll take as many as we can. Good evening, caller. Go right ahead, please.
Good night, afternoon.
Good evening.
Can you imagine Skerrit is destroying Dominica with a great speed? Skerrit is like a runaway train. Can you imagine Skerrit drilling through live volcanoes to build geothermal.
Caller, let me make a correction. It is Skerrit and others. So we make a mistake when we singularly name a prime minister, a single person, because there are other ministers of cabinet, there are permanent secretaries, there are chief technical officers. There's a whole cabal of people engaged in the destruction of our country. And one of the cardinal errors we're making is we're pointing at only part of the target. The Prime Minister is part of the target, but he's not the complete target. The complete target is a lot of people who are getting away under the radar with an abdication of their duties and responsibilities. Continue, please.
Yes, but he's the head.
Yeah.
He's the head. He's like a king ruling a nation. And he's supposed to know that drilling through the live volcano is danger in the country. Our country, the creator put his live volcano, and he know why. Yeah. He put volcanoes in Dominica. Dominica have 9 live volcanoes, and a madman is drilling through volcanoes for him to put geothermal.
Okay.
He's destroying Dominica slowly. He's talking about traitor. He is the traitor. He destroyed agriculture. He destroyed the whole of Dominica. Dominicans will suffer. Those labor rights, those parasites that follow in Skerrit to do those things. Children that haven't born in their mother's womb will suffer. Let them don't ask yourself a question and put Roosevelt Skerrit in his place. This little boy, this toy boy, put him in his place. Roosevelt Skerrit is like a runaway train. If you don't know what he do, like you have a chip in his head. People have to put him straight. I've seen people like Charles Savarin, that could be his great-grandfather, having the forming the royal food in the country. All of them just pussyfooting in the country. That is nonsense. Dominicans have to stand up, the elderly and everybody, the young children. We have to stand up and put Roosevelt Skerrit in his place. That man is a madman.
Thank you, caller. Let me reiterate. I think as valid as your concerns are, caller, and I understand and I sympathize and I identify with your concerns, but I believe strategically it is an error. It is in error to exclusively target a single person. You have agriculture. You have a director of agriculture that has constitutional responsibilities, yes. A permanent secretary. And what has happened is that the governance system of the country has been dismantled.
And compromised.
And those people are in the positions where they could have avoided it, and they have gone along. So if you have to solve the problem, if you remove the Prime Minister, you have a lot of other people that have to be removed. And they know that. Yeah. And that is why they're like a bunch of plastic men and women are going along with the dismantling because they are afraid to lose their jobs. They want to get their pension, they're waiting, and then they'll want to go to church with you and sit down next to you and say, hey, good morning, Mr. Martin, how are you today? How is your mother? Or how is your father? They're dead. Both of them. You know, that kind of stuff. And so I really want to make that point, Francis. And I think I talk to a lot of young people. And young people are also, it's not that they support what is going on, but they realize that the response appears to be flawed. And I say so for both the opposition parties, the Freedom Party, the United Workers' Party, and other independents who have concerns. It is not enough to target an individual. It is necessary to understand a systemic approach to governance, so that you don't just move one and think you have solved the problem when in fact you have inherited the problem and just postponed it, delayed the ongoing impact.
That's why I always ask, where are the principal technical people who are supposed to be giving the advice? If you are told against your principle and your training to send this report which indicates that, and you are going away from the scientific reality of what it is, then of course you are liable and culpable.
Absolutely.
You have to say strongly, this is not going to work. Document that you've said that, and this can't work. And if that's the trend, then we're in serious trouble.
And farmers have to call for the removal of Ricky Brumant as Director of Agriculture. They have to call for the removal of if it's the head of the planning department, for the removal of the chief environmental officer, if there are continuing violations. Yes, and the ministers involved.
Did you hear the fire in Greenfield in the UK?
Absolutely.
The council called for resignation. He has, and the chief executive officer has also resigned.
Sure. So you have, if you're going to clean house, you have to clean house. You know, you have to clean house from top to bottom. Otherwise, you will not solve the problem. Okay. It's not, you know, so if people think by removing Trump, for example, as president of the United States, they solve the problem, they have a whole lot of people in that administration today who are even more dangerous, one might say, than Trump. You know, so let's be clear, people. Let's be really clear. And I want to see, and I think a lot of the young people that I talk to, the young professionals and so forth, who see that things have gone badly in Dominica. There's mismanagement, there's incompetence, there's corruption. They know it just like you and I, Francis. But they also know it does not make sense for the adult community to believe that by changing the leadership, it is the same way that by going after Lennox is not the United Workers' Party.
That's just it.
Lennox is the leader of the United Workers' Party. So if you support or you don't support, you really don't support an individual and that individual's organizational policies and strategies and programs and so forth. No, that's the level of maturity we don't appear to be getting into. And I am fairly distressed when I listen to some of the radio programs of the opposition parties, both the United Workers' Party and the Freedom Party, and I'm not hearing a national coming together around the problem, creating critical mass that is critical to getting change. I'm hearing them talking about this one, you know, we remobilizing, we rebuilding. Rebuilding what? You're dissipating the energies of a small society when in fact you should be consolidating. Why? What's the problem about coming together around critical issues? What's the problem about, do we again want to wait for an election to be called to try to rush and form some kind of electoral coalition? That is what will not work. If people see persons across the political spectrum working on problems together,
common problems, common goals, common things that affects the people of Dominica, the young people in particular.
Young people will see that. They will see you finally beginning to put the country first. Even if you're from different political parties, nobody's asking anybody to dismantle their party, but they're saying to you, your party's strategy must include a deliberate strategy for working together on these key national issues.
It has to be.
It cannot be otherwise, at least. And that's what young professionals tell me. And if the parties don't want to listen to that and hear it, they'll be irrelevant. Good evening, caller.
Yes, good evening, Afi. Good
evening,
Mr. Joseph.
Good evening.
How are you, bro?
Well, thanks.
We hear dancing. How are you, my dear? How is the family?
Everybody's good, thank you.
Okay, please give my love and regards.
Will do, and do the same for me.
Will do. So what's up?
Okay, I'm sitting listening to the discussion. The question is, or maybe we should say, the problem is that we've got ministers that holding portfolios that they don't even understand what it is.
Exactly.
That supposed to be doing.
So let's get them out. Let's get them out. It is one person who says they have no regard for the Constitution, but all of us do have regard for the Constitution, and the Constitution requires that if you get sworn in as a minister, you have constitutional responsibilities, and if you're not carrying them out, there should be an equally forceful campaign to get rid of the Minister for Agriculture, the Minister for Health, the Minister for this, the Minister for whoever. There should be a vigorous campaign to peel the banana. Peel the banana, minister by minister.
You're exactly right. And last week you touched on government or the current brand of politics, or the people, the leaders we have, unconventional in terms of what they do and how they present themselves.
Yes.
Not only do we have an unconventional government, but we've got a dysfunctional government running the country right now. And until we get rid of them, we're not going to have any progress for Dominica. Everything is blocked right now. Their intellect. People come in, you live outside of Dominica, you work, and you live in the United States. You see how things are run. I had an interaction with Mr. Joseph while he was in the spotlight, relating to things that happen in England and how you could bring this to Dominica. And we've got a blockage. Nobody can come to Dominica and do anything because Jared, one man, is blocking the progress of Dominica. And until we get rid of this impediment, we're not going to move forward. We cannot move forward. We need to get rid of this hindrance, like right now, effective immediately.
Okay, caller, I hear your point. I'm saying in 1979, the strategy that was used to get rid of the Labour Party government at that time was to peel the banana. To peel the banana one minister at a time until Mr. John was left
with no one,
with almost nobody in his cabinet, which means that he didn't have a government. And yes, he didn't resign, but he was forced out simply because this strategy was not to demand him to come out, but was to take the government away from him, so that he ended up being there
on his own.
Yeah. And I'm saying that is clearly a strategy that can work, and these other ministers are, probably don't have the resilience. They certainly don't have the money resources of the Prime Minister, so they will probably be less able to defend themselves. And Mr. Skerrit has shown himself willing to throw his ministers under the bus. So let him throw his ministers under the bus one at a time. Rosalind Paul, Catherine Daniel, that Mr. Daru, Mr. Kelver, Mr. This, one by one. And ultimately he'll end up with a cabinet with nobody but himself. I mean, what's wrong with us that we can only see one strategy at a time? There's something wrong, because every time you take away one side of the peel of a banana, you affect the whole banana.
That's just it.
Let's take a few more calls. It's 7:53. We have 7 more minutes with Francis Joseph. We obviously are not going to hear from our overseas colleague, so we'll take a few more calls. Good evening, caller. Go right ahead, please. Good evening, caller. You're live. I guess maybe you're not listening. Good evening, caller. You're next.
I was hoping that I get through.
How are you, man?
Not bad.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the clock. I said, man, the clock is ticking.
I know it's ticking quickly. And tonight, we're ending on time tonight.
Yes. Francis, what's up?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
Afi,
yes.
I wonder how many young people are really listening to that program. And young people, how many adults are really encouraging the children? Encouraging the children and the minors to really listen to this program.
I can tell you that I have met several young people and groups of young people who actually, some of whom, get together to listen together to this program, and can tell you almost word for word what we have said.
Well, that's good, huh? That's good. But I'm only hoping that, a reasonable and a great percentage of young people are really listening to that, and adults listening to these programs are big. Because it is important that we all get to know exactly what is happening in our country. And too many times, too often, I myself hear some people say, but I never heard that now. I never heard that. Although, when they say that now?
Yes.
And it's a shame. This is Dominica. We have to pay attention to everything that is happening. Don't come and say, okay, the Rosa Bridge fall. And you just repeat and say, without proving to yourself that the Rosa Bridge fell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's important that we have to get to know exactly what is happening in our country. I think, you mentioned about, there was discussion about the hotel in Portsmouth. All right? And as to whether the Tong Kongs in Portsmouth is very aware as to what is happening. I had some discussion some time ago with a guy from Portsmouth. We just talked, and some of guys were around. And one of the guys said, although I objected to what he said, but one of the most backward thinking people in Dominica are Portsmouth people.
That's not true.
So I disagree with him. But he raised the point. Look, he said, look, had it not been for Ross University in Portsmouth would have been like a ghost town.
True.
And I saw the point. I saw where he was coming from. I saw where he was coming from. Because, it's like we have to use our initiative. We have to do that. And really, frankly speaking, had it not been for Ross University in Portsmouth would have been down.
True.
Portsmouth would have been down. Look, the last election, Ian Douglas repaired one road close to the pavilion, the park in Portsmouth. And when that was done, after election, everything is done in Portsmouth. It's finished. Until next election, he might repair another road or do something, and then it's done again.
But
and the people are just, applauding for what?
Yeah.
The economy is bad. Had it not been for Ross University, and that's the point that he was drawing home. So and that is why I ask, how many people are really listening to these programs, rather than having someone come to say, okay, look, I hear this, and you're not sure as whether it's true or whether it's false.
Yeah. Okay, caller. Thank you much. I can confirm, and Francis, I spend a lot of time walking and talking, and a lot of people listen. Q95 is the most listened to radio station in Dominica.
And not only Dominicans here who listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and the UK. This last point we're talking about here, because it really will have to be our last point, is 7:58. The situation with Portsmouth and Ross and the high level of dependency on a single investment, as we were with bananas and so forth, and that is what makes me really cringe and feel so bad and feel so disappointed at what Sam Raphael is doing. Because Sam Raphael is out there promoting the dependence of the entire nation on a single source of financing, which he and all of us know is volatile. Can be gone tomorrow. And Sam knows better. Sam, when he did Jungle Bay in the east, in the southeast, Sam spent years working with those communities. Bagatelle, Petit Savan, Poetica, Dailies, and cultivating a sense of belonging and partnering, and which is what defined Jungle Bay as a unique product. Sam knows that it wasn't the money, it was the relationship
and building of the communities and the resources
and connecting with communities, and those people developed a sense of ownership of Jungle Bay as if it was theirs, and they would work for it, to make it successful, as they did.
And you go there, you feel welcome.
And Sam had awards that he gave. I went to as many of the ceremonies as I could, and where that was the driving force of those awards. And for somebody like Sam Raphael to go on DBS radio and try to justify the sale of passports as the lifeline of tourism, the new monocrop, the new banana, the new Ross University as per Portsmouth, and says that it is the largest single source of government revenue. Sam, that's a problem, Sam, and you know that. I know that, you know that. And there are several other people. Some of them will say, oh, America selling passports, Australia selling passports. Those countries don't take lightly with their passports. They don't let people get away without severe due diligence and significant investment, and they measure the impact before you can get your residence, not your citizenship.
Your residence.
Your residence.
And these people are specially targeted, and
absolutely.
And due diligence is done to ensure that we have the right person, not just anybody.
And we end up not even knowing how many passports have been sold, by Sam's own admission. Not even knowing who those new Dominican citizens are
and the real cost.
What the return on the sale of those passports is, because those passports can be sold for $1 million or $100,000, right? And not understanding the impact, and not taking account of the fact that some of our most valuable passports, our diplomatic passports, have ended up in the hands of people who are today in front of judges,
courts, and in jail.
Some of whom have been convicted. Some of whom must find $100+ million to refund
the country. And we have.
So what Sam is doing is even more criminal than what the ministers of government have done. Because the ministers of government couldn't shine Sam's shoes when it comes to business or knowledge of business. So for them it was just about getting money. Mano and those fellas, it's just money. It's just money. Money in my pocket. I driving a Rolls Royce boy. You know, that little children business. But Sam is a mature businessman who I learned to have a certain kind of a level of respect for, and I took his advice, his business advice, many times. And to listen to that man today, end up making an argument that my dear friend Kokom wouldn't even make that argument. I met Kokom in Granby recently at the funeral of Crispin Gregoire's mother, and Kokom is showing himself to have understood a lot over the last couple of years, and making no excuses for anybody on either side of the political fence. Wow. This is Kokom, you understand?
Yeah.
And I'm hearing Sam becoming an apologist for the single most criminal group of government people that we have had in Dominica ever in my life. I'll be 72 years old in December, Francis.
Wow.
I'll be 72. And I have to listen to Sam telling me that this group of guys we have there who have raped and robbed the country and who have unraveled the young people's minds in the country.
In the name of Dominica.
In the name of Canada. And where are the jobs for those young people? Another wave has just graduated from state and from high school. What are those kids? What are those children going to do? You out there offering them money, cash. What are they going to do? They're going to take the cash and run.
It's not invested.
And we are being told that is CBI money, and Sam is justifying that. You understand my pain? You understand why I'm almost out of words here.
It's frightening when you really look at it and you go in depth as to what's happening and the mechanism of it. It is worrying, and we need to know about this, because it's not something that can continue forever.
And Francis, some of us have to let young Dominica know that not every adult supports this madness. Not every adult wants to destroy their future. That there are some of us, who have devoted most of our adult lives to creating a new Dominica for them.
For them, yeah.
And that as long as the Creator gives us the strength and the breath,
we will continue.
We will continue. Definitely. And the young people of Dominica, I want you all to know that we have not all abandoned you. We want you to have a future right here. Any parting words from you, Francis?
Well, it was a pleasure being here, and I'm hopeful that at least we've got some people listening attentively. Questions were asked, but there are people who sit down and at home and take it on board.
Yeah.
This kind of discussion has to continue. We have to give the alternative as to what's happening in the best way possible. Not getting personal, but staying focused on what the issue is for national security, national development, that they have to understand they have to be on board. They have a stake in this and they have a say in this. This is their future, and we have to help them get there.
Absolutely.
And as you say, we have to cry for our young people and talk for them and talk on their behalf most times. And we need them on board. So thank you very much for being here.
It's been a real pleasure, my friend and brother. I thank you for taking the time. I know you're on vacation and we're putting you to work, but you've never shunned the opportunity to work for your country.
Work for my country.
Absolutely. Okay, Francis, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
We are the children of the revolution. We are the children of the 70s. We are the children of the revolution. We are the fighters, if you please. It's we who fought for your salvation, so you don't have to fight. We are the children of the revolution who fought to make things right. You make me feel we fought a losing battle when I look at you today. Oh God. We are the children of the revolution. We are the children of the revolution. We are the children of the revolution who fought so that you won't be this way. Old dagger is grey and aging now, weak from time but still stands for right. Rafik Shah, your contribution is not forgotten. Nunez haven't given up the fight. Beverly Jones, God rest her soul. Guy Haywood and Brian Jeffers too. These are just some of the people who fought and died. Yes, they give their lives for you. Many more have died, too much to mention. Many more are still around. And then there are those of us who continue to make a contribution in song. We are the children of the revolution. We are the children of the 70s. We are the children